My 20M best friend, 22F of 2 years, is beginning to replace me with another friend I introduced her to in a pretty interesting way. What am I doing wrong, and what should I do from here? I would like to preface this by saying this is not the first time this has happened, and I came to accept it as a normal part of life. People change, and people find new interests. I completely understand that. But I know some alarm bells are going to go off by me admitting that this has happened in multiple relationships, frankly more times than it hasn't. I have spent a long time over the years introspecting, one time shutting myself out of relationships of any kind for over a year, just to try to pinpoint what it is I am doing wrong, and I did a lot of work to change the way I view things, and the way I treat others. So whilst I am completely open to hearing criticism, and honestly anything's on the table and I'm willing to listen, please do not get too focused on things like confirmation bias or whatnot. I am fully aware of times where my own outlook on things are what caused relationships to crumble, and I would like to go completely on the record and say that that is most likely not what happened in this particular scenario. But again, I could absolutely be wrong, so if you feel like it genuinely could be the case, please do bring it up. Before I go into detail on what's happening now, I will touch on one time in the past that I believe was a relationship that ended in a very healthy and honest manner, with no resentment, distance, or game playing. When these things usually happen, when I feel a bit of animosity brewing, I'll let it fester for a while before I ask the question. I do this because I do not want to appear obsessive or clingy, or just generally make them uncomfortable. Until I've experienced this behavior for an extended period of time, I won't touch on it. But when I do ultimately ask, what's going on? In a very open manner, in order to not make them instantly feel like it is an attack or accusation, I almost always get the same, I don't know what you are talking about, or all the other variations of it. But in this particular relationship, with my ex-girlfriend, not a friend, I got a genuine and honest answer. At the time I was dealing with a very serious illness. It had been ongoing for about a year, and it was affecting my personality and my appearance. My ex-girlfriend was completely honest with me and told me that that was the reason, and whilst obviously it hurt to hear, I completely understood and we ended things there. I have so much appreciation for her for being honest to me, and we are still on good terms and talk once every week or two. But why is this particular situation so much more significant than all the other times? Well, in the past I had the means to work through it. I usually had other friends to fall back on. But there are other things that are arguably more important as to why this is probably the most painful experience I've had in a friendship. I would again like to preface this by saying, I want to be very careful about painting myself as a victim of any kind. I know how easy it is to instantly blame others without any thought put into what I potentially did wrong. But in all honesty, I'm coming up empty with any possible thing I have done that affected our friendship. This is a friendship I put a lot of time into. I put a lot of my mental health into, and a good bit of money to support them too. They have been going through a rough patch, and every time I have put down everything I am doing to help them and be there for them. This is the one friendship where I sacrificed a lot to make it work, just because I was so sick of losing people. I think this is the one time where I can say definitively that I have not done anything wrong, which feels very weird to say, and again, open to being confronted on this if you think there might be more to it. But that's where I am at right now. I noticed I haven't even touched on what's actually happening yet. My bad, I'll get into it now. Over the last few months, I felt the distancing occurring. Obviously, immediately the alarm bells started ringing, but I almost immediately cut it out. There are natural ebb and flows to relationships, and the way she is speaking to me could be completely unrelated to me in any way and just reflective of where she's at in life right now. But it went beyond that, which has never happened to me before. I began to receive snarky remarks, random subtle jabs. I could feel her trying to bait me into having a reaction. And this sucked, because I know I really have no grounds to explicitly call her out on it, and she will immediately get defensive. So I did something I guess I shouldn't have done. Let it continue. Every day we would talk. Sometimes our conversations were normal, and I immediately forgot about all that was happening beforehand. And then it starts again, and I feel like shit, and then a normal conversation comes and I forget about it all over again. This cycle repeating for over 2 months until there was less and less normal conversations. And ultimately, I got mad for the first time in a very long time. I thought I could handle it, but I just couldn't. It became too much for me, and I was so devastated from the betrayal that I gave her the reaction that I assumed she was hoping for. Still though, I didn't call her any names. I didn't insult her or anything of the sort. I was just very heated and confronted her over this. In response, I got, "Jesus, I don't know what you were talking about. I mean, I'm sorry if I upset you, but I don't know what I did." This could have very well just have been just my brain confirming preconceived notions in the heat of the moment, but I knew she knew exactly what she was doing. But still, I never said that. I gave her an out by saying maybe it was unintentional. Is there anything going on in her life, etc., etc.? And ultimately, I ended up apologizing for my outburst. Gonna try speed this up because this has got a little too long, but ultimately the cycle repeats. A few weeks go by and it happens again, and I get mad and basically the same response plays out. I ultimately begin to come around to apologizing, but I hold myself back and instead propose that we take a couple of weeks off from talking or hanging out to try refresh the friendship. She agrees and apologizes, and I agree and apologize. By this point, I thought we had found at least some stability and began the road to repairing what has been our friendship for the last few months. But it took another turn, and this is where I am going to be a little more open-ended and welcome any points about confirmation bias or whatnot. Edited. I had introduced her to a friend about half a year ago. They didn't really get on well, so I assumed that was that and didn't bring them around each other again. In fact, in one case, my best friend explicitly told me she just wasn't a big fan of my other friend, so that was that. But immediately, as soon as we agreed on our break, she followed that friend on various social media platforms and began interacting with all her posts. Start asterisk a bit off-putting, but whatever, maybe she just needs another person to fall back on for a while. But then I read the contents of the replies and interactions she's having. Maybe shouldn't be looking at all this, but I did. She's rehashing jokes I made to her months ago, jokes that had her on the floor laughing. She's telling stories very similar to what I had told her before, and just generally doing very weird things like all of a sudden using my lingo and way of speaking. I am very unsure on how I am supposed to feel about this. My mind is immediately jumping to this is vindictive, but I could very be wrong and looking way too deep. But still, I know for a fact those stories aren't true and she just took some creative liberties from things that happened in my own life. I know for a fact those are jokes that I came up with and told her, and she has never spoken like that before. Again, this is to my friend, who she pre-established she wasn't a fan of, and now she's trying to get very close to her. I haven't contacted my friend about this because we aren't as close these days, and I think it would be pretty weird to do so. But I'm just lost here. I am very upset, but I am not going to have any reaction or confront her about it. I just want to know where to go from here. Should I cut my losses and, despite my investment in the friendship, just move on? Or should I try sitting her down and just talking again? Apologies about the length. I didn't realize I had typed this much, but I hope it gives you as much information as possible in regards to this situation. TL, Dr. Best Friend, 22F of 2 years has been acting very, very weird to me over the last few months, and is beginning to replace me with someone I introduced her to, and she's using the things, jokes and stories, I have told her before in our friendship in order to do so. Unsure of where to go from here, and would like to know if I am potentially doing something wrong in my relationships that I am unaware of. Edit. Did a quick read over and realized I never definitively touched on why it feels like I'm being replaced in particular. It's all of the reasons above pretty much combined with the person she is currently talking to is why. Jumped the gun a little on that and should have done a bit of proofreading. Apologies.